picture this. You walk into a beautifully designed, completely private suite. You just lie down.
Right. No heavy lifting.
Exactly. You don't lift a single weight. You don't run on a treadmill. You're not breaking yourself down in some grueling boot camp class. Yet 40 minutes later, your body has burned up to like 600 calories.
Which is pretty incredible.
It is. Your cells have literally been stimulated to produce more energy, and your core temperature has been elevated to trigger this massive cardiovascular response. Now, take a second and step out of that room, put your investor hat on.
Let's do it.
Picture owning the building that makes that happen and doing it without, the massive overhead of highly specialized medical staff or the really complex supply chains you might find in other retail sectors.
Yeah, it's the ultimate intersection of two massive shifts right now.
Yeah.
You have consumer behavior moving rapidly away from purely active fitness and toward cellular level recovery.
Right.
And then on the business side, you have the franchise industry desperately searching for leaner, more scalable operational models.
And that is exactly what we are examining today in this deep dive. We're looking at the Beam Light Sauna franchise model.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one.
If you are listening to this, you might be, maybe you're a corporate professional plotting your exit strategy into business ownership. Or maybe you're an existing multi-unit franchise operator looking to diversify. Our mission today is to essentially tear down the engine of this specific model and show you exactly how it runs.
Right, we're going to look at the unit economics, the science driving the consumer demand, and the multi-unit architecture.
Because, the reality of the franchise space is that a trendy concept will get people through the door once.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Once.
Yeah.
But it takes a fundamentally sound business architecture to get them to actually sign a monthly membership agreement and, keep their credit card on file for years.
Exactly. We need to look past the glossy marketing and figure out if the underlying mechanics of this model actually justify that initial investment. So I want to start right at the core product. Because if the service doesn't genuinely work, the whole financial model just, collapses.
Right, the foundation has to be there.
The primary service here is a 40-minute full-spectrum infrared sauna session, and that's paired with a 15-minute red light therapy session. But, a lot of people hear sauna and just think of a wooden room filled with really hot, suffocating air.
Yeah, the traditional gym sauna.
Right. So what is physically happening differently here that allows them to charge a premium?
Well, traditional saunas, they rely on ambient heat. So they heat the air around you to these extreme temperatures, often upward of like 200 degrees.
Which is so uncomfortable.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And that hot air eventually heats your skin, but it only penetrates superficially. Infrared technology, though, it fundamentally flips that mechanism.
Oh, so?
So instead of heating the air, the panels emit specific wavelengths of infrared light, so near, mid, and far infrared. These photons of light, they travel harmlessly through the air and actually penetrate deep into your body's soft tissue.
Oh, wow. So it's heating you from the inside out rather than the outside in.
Precisely. And because it penetrates up to about 1.5 inches into muscle and fat tissue, it raises your core body temperature directly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then your body has to work incredibly hard to cool itself down. This triggers a physiological response where your heart rate increases, your cardiac output goes up, and your body is essentially mimicking the cardiovascular exertion of, say, a moderate jog.
Just while sitting there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how you achieve that potential 600-calorie burn while just relaxing. Furthermore, because the heat is penetrating at a cellular level, the sweat you produce actually contains a much higher concentration of heavy metals and toxins compared to, the sweat from a traditional ambient heat sauna.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense for the infrared heat. It's like plugging the human body into a rapid charging station. You just sit there while the technology does the heavy lifting.
That's a great way to put it.
But they also heavily lean into the red light therapy and chromotherapy. What is the actual mechanism there? Because, how does shining a red or green light on someone actually change their cellular health? Without understanding that, it sounds a little bit like magic.
Yeah, I totally get that. It comes down to a process called photobiomodulation.
Photobiomodulation. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds super complex, but you can think of it loosely like photosynthesis for human cells.
Oh, okay.
Right, so plants use chlorophyll to absorb sunlight and turn it into energy. Humans obviously don't have chlorophyll, but we do have a specific enzyme in our mitochondria called cytochrome C oxidase.
The mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, as we all learned in high school biology.
Exactly, the powerhouse.
Yeah.
Normally, when your body is stressed, a molecule called nitric oxide binds to that enzyme and essentially blocks oxygen, which halts the production of ATP, adenosine triphosphate.
And ATP is energy, right?
Right. ATP is the raw energy currency your cells use to repair themselves, produce collagen, fight inflammation, all of that. So when specific wavelengths of red and near-infrared light, usually right around that 630 to 850 nanometer range, hit your skin, they're absorbed by that enzyme. The light physically breaks the bond with the nitric oxide, allowing oxygen back in, and your mitochondria just immediately start pumping out ATP again.
Wow. So the light isn't just like making you feel good superficially, it's acting as a biological catalyst to unblock your cellular energy production.
Yes, exactly. And depending on the wavelength or the color of the light, it penetrates to different depths.
Oh, so the color matters.
Huge difference. Blue light, for example, operates at a shorter wavelength. It doesn't penetrate deeply, which makes it perfect for the surface of the skin. It interacts with porphyrins and bacteria to actually reduce blemishes and acne.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then green light targets melanocytes to help with hyperpigmentation. And it has this calming effect on the vascular system, which helps manage things like chronic pain and migraines. It's highly targeted physics-based therapy.
Okay, the science is undeniably fascinating.
It really is.
But, I have to look this from the perspective of an investor. A lot of incredible science never becomes a viable business because it's too complex for the average consumer to adopt.
That's very true.
Right now, this brand has massive cultural momentum. You have people like LeBron James, Steph Curry, Lady Gaga, Gwyneth Paltrow openly championing these therapies.
Oh yeah, the celebrity adoption is huge.
But, celebrity hype is notoriously cyclical. Does a local franchise owner actually have a sustainable moat here? Or are they just riding a pop culture wave that might crash in 3 years?
That is the exact right question to ask when evaluating a franchise.
Yeah.
But we have to look at how a local owner actually leverages that celebrity adoption.
Okay.
We connect this to the bigger picture. In the franchise world, your biggest hurdle is customer acquisition cost, right?
Oh, absolutely.
If you're opening a concept with zero market awareness, you have to spend an absolute fortune locally just educating your zip code on what the product even is.
Right. You have to pay to create the demand before you can even try to capture it.
Precisely. What this cultural and celebrity validation does is entirely remove that education burden from the local franchisee's balance sheet.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, mainstream culture has already accepted that red light and infrared therapies are highly effective for recovery and anti-aging. The clinical science backs it up, and the athletes validate it.
So they already want it.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So your local ad spend isn't saying, hey, let me explain photobiomodulation to you. Your ad spend is simply saying, that therapy you keep hearing about, it's right here in your neighborhood.
Wow, that's a massive advantage.
It drastically accelerates the path to profitability for a new studio. The science ensures the efficacy, but the cultural awareness is what drives the initial foot traffic.
Let's follow that foot traffic then, because say a customer walks through the door because they saw their favorite athlete using red light therapy. How does this model trap at that value?
Right.
Because selling one-off 40-minute sessions, that doesn't build a sustainable business. You need predictable recurring revenue.
The entire operational architecture is built to convert that initial curiosity into a long-term membership. And they do it by targeting a very specific demographic.
Who is that?
They're targeting the affluent, health-conscious consumer. This is critical because, in times of economic tightening, this demographic treats their wellness routines as inelastic.
Meaning they won't cut it from their budget.
Right. They might delay buying a new car or skip a vacation, but they aren't going to cancel the therapy that keeps their chronic pain at bay or manages their anxiety.
But play devil's advocate for a second. Couldn't that same affluent consumer just buy an infrared blanket or red light panel off the internet and use it in their living room? Why pay a monthly membership?
It's a fair point, but it comes down to the quality of the technology and the psychology of the third space.
Okay, break that down.
Commercially graded, full-spectrum infrared saunas require serious electrical infrastructure. You can't just plug them into a standard wall outlet without tripping breakers.
Oh, right. They draw a lot of power.
Exactly. The at-home versions are notoriously underpowered and mostly rely on far infrared only, completely missing the near and mid wavelengths required for those deeper cellular benefits we discussed.
So they're not getting the full effect at home.
Not even close. And beyond that, the consumer is paying for the sanctuary. They want to escape their house, escape their kids, put their phone away, and be entirely unbothered in a premium environment.
Yeah, you really can't replicate that isolation in a guest bedroom.
You really can't.
I want to dig into the four walls of the business itself because labor is usually the silent killer of any retail or wellness operation.
Oh, it's brutal.
If you run a high-end spa, your revenue is bottlenecked by your massage therapists. If they call in sick or if they quit to start their own practice, your revenue drops to zero for that room. How does this model manage the labor variable?
This is perhaps the most compelling aspect for, say, a semi-absentee investor.
Yeah.
You are essentially selling time in a specialized room. The technology is providing the service, not a human being with a specialized license. So you don't have massive payroll costs associated with highly credentialed practitioners.
But you still need to sell the memberships, right?
Yeah.
Usually that requires aggressive, highly trained sales staff at the front desk, which brings its own turnover headaches.
That brings us to their proprietary operational tool. It's an intuitive wellness assistant they call Lumi.
Here's where it gets really interesting. How does that actually function on the floor?
Imagine a new customer walks in. Instead of a 20-something front desk employee fumbling through, some high-pressure sales script, the customer interacts with Lumi.
Like an iPad or a kiosk?
Exactly. It's an automated diagnostic-style interface. It asks the user about their specific goals. Are they dealing with joint pain? Are they trying to improve their skin? Are they looking for stress relief?
Okay.
Based on those inputs, Lumi curates a highly customized session plan and prescribes the exact membership tier that aligns with their needs.
Wow, that completely changes the dynamic at the front desk.
It changes everything. It standardizes the premium onboarding experience across all 294 units. It makes the customer feel deeply understood and cared for rather than feeling like they're just being sold to.
Right, it feels like a concierge service.
Exactly. And for you as the owner, it removes the reliance on expensive sales talent. Your front desk staff becomes a hospitality team, focusing on cleanliness and customer care rather than a high-pressure closing team. It elegantly solves, the biggest headache of retail staffing.
And while the staff is managing that hospitality experience, they are also surrounded by secondary revenue streams, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Because it isn't just the memberships. The studios integrate retail elements, branded apparel, nutritional supplements, high-end beauty products. It seems like a very deliberate strategy to increase the average ticket price of a customer who's already highly engaged with the brand.
It is entirely about maximizing the lifetime value of the customer without complicating the operation. Selling a bottle of premium supplements alongside a membership, that doesn't require a commercial kitchen or complex inventory management.
Right. It's just ringing it up.
Yeah, it is a low-friction, high-margin addition to the core business.
Okay, let's unpack this and shift gears to look at the financial blueprint. Because if we know the labor is lean, the product is scientifically sound, and the revenue is recurring, what does it actually cost to get one of these studios open?
So the published initial investment range to get the doors open is between $209,250 and $568,750.
Okay.
To qualify for the franchise, they look for a minimum net worth of $500,000 and at least $100,000 in liquid capital. And on the operational side, there is a standard 7% royalty fee and a 1% ad royalty fee.
Let's break down that investment range because the gap between 200 grand and, over $500,000 is pretty significant. What drives that variance? And more importantly, what does that specific financial tier tell us about the ideal buyer?
The variance is driven almost entirely by the real estate.
Oh, the bill out.
Exactly. The cost of leasehold improvements. The actual construction required to build out the suite, upgrade the electrical panels to handle the commercial saunas, and install the HVAC systems, that varies wildly depending on the market and the condition of the building you lease.
So a second-generation wellness space would be a lot cheaper.
Far less to build out than a completely raw concrete shell. Yeah.
But even at the high end of that range, $500,000 is a very specific tier in the franchise world. I mean, it isn't a cheap home-based service business, but it also isn't a $3 million standalone restaurant.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is it occupies what we often call the Goldilocks zone of franchising.
The Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, right in the middle. On one side, it's accessible for a successful corporate executive who wants to leave the W-2 world. With a required liquid capital of $100,000, that individual can easily leverage a rollover for business startups, our ROBS plan, to use their retirement funds tax-free, or, they can secure an SBA loan.
Right, it's attainable.
It provides a highly professional, sophisticated business environment without requiring them to pledge their entire life's assets as collateral.
And on the other side?
On the other side, it is an incredibly attractive vehicle for multi-unit expansion. If you are an experienced franchise operator who already owns, say, 5 fitness centers or a dozen hair salons, you look at this model and see a highly scalable footprint.
Because it's lean.
Exactly. Because the real estate requirement is relatively small and the labor model is simple, you can easily acquire the rights to 3, 4, or 5 territories in a single market and cluster them together.
Right.
You can dominate an entire metro area for the same capital investment it would take to build just a single drive-through restaurant.
Wow. And that multi-unit appeal definitely shows in their growth metrics. I mean, the brand launched in 2022, and they have already scaled to 294 established units.
It's an explosive growth rate.
It is. I have to push back on that, though. Scaling to nearly 300 units in roughly 2 years is an aggressive, bordering on terrifying pace.
It is very fast.
Right. In the franchise industry, scaling that fast usually breaks the corporate support structure or completely fractures the training systems. How is a system sustaining that velocity without the wheels just coming off?
It's a phenomenal point, and it is exactly why the nature of the product matters so much. If this were a traditional retail concept with perishable goods, scaling to 300 units in 2 years would be highly complex.
You'd have to figure out regional distribution, massive hiring crises.
Exactly, but remember what they are selling. They are selling time and light.
So the heavy lifting is entirely front-loaded into the build-out.
Exactly right. The complex part is the real estate site selection, negotiating the lease, and managing the construction to get the saunas installed. Once the doors are open, the studio operates on a very simple logistical loop.
That makes total sense.
The franchisor isn't shipping them thousands of pounds of perishable ingredients every week. They are simply providing the software support, the marketing playbooks, and the ongoing operational guidance. That allows the corporate team to scale their support structure much more efficiently than other brands.
So when a franchise pays that 7% ongoing royalty, they are essentially paying for access to a corporate machine that has already optimized the hardest parts of the business. You know, the real estate playbook, the custom technology like Lumi, and the grand opening marketing strategies. They have made the expensive mistakes on the first 100 units so the next 100 don't have to.
Precisely. You are buying speed to market and risk mitigation. You could theoretically try to open an independent wellness studio on your own,
Sure, you could try.
but negotiating the commercial electrical requirements, building a custom diagnostic software to manage your front desk, and negotiating bulk discounts on commercial-grade infrared panels, that would take years and cost substantially more in the long run.
It really is a masterclass in structural alignment. You take a booming cultural movement towards cellular health and holistic recovery, and instead of turning it into like a Complan medical clinic, you package it into a lean, recurring revenue model that solves the biggest pain points of retail ownership.
It strips out the complex labor, it standardizes the sales process with intuitive technology, and it creates a highly predictable financial engine. It
Brilliant.
really forces us to reconsider what the future of health and wellness looks like from a business perspective. We are watching a generational shift right now.
How so?
Well, for decades, the wellness and fitness industry has been built entirely around the concept of active exertion. The consumer pays a gym or a studio for the privilege of working incredibly hard, sweating, and tearing down muscle to see a result.
The traditional no pain, no gain model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this model represents the frontier of passive wellness. The consumer is realizing that recovery, cellular health, and inflammation reduction are just as vital, if not more so, than active exertion.
Wow, passive wellness.
Yeah, and in the passive wellness model, the technology does the work. The consumer just has to show up, relax, and let the physics of light and heat take over. That is a radically different value proposition for an aging, affluent population that wants the health benefits without the joint impact.
It's an entirely new category of consumer demand, really.
And as an investor or an aspiring franchise owner, that is the trend you want to be evaluating. Ask yourself how passive wellness is going to disrupt the traditional active models over the next 10 years.
Because it's coming.
It is. Because positioning your business portfolio on the right side of a structural shift like that, well, that is how generational wealth is built.
It comes down to aligning yourself with where the consumer is going, not where they have been.